Hey everybody, welcome back to another video and welcome back to the channel. I hope you've been following along with the tutorial series. The link to all the videos, if you have missed any of them at all, are going to be posted in the description below. So please feel free to check them out. If you have been following along and you found this video series useful, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification so you're updated with all the latest videos that I upload in the future. In the previous video we looked at the making the request to go and fetch our comics, which we have some placeholder, these purple blocks at the bottom here we have as a placeholder and some a default label. So in today's video we're going to look at actually populating that with some real data. So with that being said, we will get this video underway. So one thing we have to do is cast this collection view cell, which is the collection view that handles this at the bottom here. We have to cast this to as comic book character comic collection view cell, so that we have access to all the relevant stuff that we require. So in this custom cell we're going to create a function called set data, and we are going to accept a comic, and it's going to be type comic, make that optional, and open and close the curly braces. One thing we want to do here is say comic title, which is the label that sits just below the purple block that you see in the simulator. We want to say comic title dot text is equal to comic dot title, and then if we head on back to where our cell is initialized on line 39, we need to get a single instance of our comic, from our comics array, which can be found on the count for the comics array can be found on line 33, this section here. So yeah, we need a single instance of our comic, so we're going to say let comic equals, and then copy and paste part of the line 33, so we can then, from the array, we can then use the index path dot item to get get the correct index from the array. So now let comic is just one single comic. We can now go cell dot set data and pass in the, if we build that should be able to pick up our set data function that we've just created. Yeah, set data, and then pass in the comic. So if we now build and run that, we should see the names of the comics appear at the just underneath the purple square that we have on our screen. So let's pick this guy here, and as you can see the titles are all different on per comic basis. This guy has a lot of comics. So with that being said, one thing I have added, and I forgot to add at the top of the video, is in our constants file I've added this default placeholder, line 19 here. I've added this default placeholder constant that is basically, this string is a string, but this string placeholder is a reference to the image asset in the image set in the assets folder. So if we go back and back into our set data. The reason we have a placeholder is because our path and extension are optionals, so we are going to unwrap them here. Guardlet equals comic dot cover, which is of our cover property in our comics is of type thumbnail, which is a custom type. Although this has been preset in some previous videos. So again, all the links will be in the description below. So we need to do comic.cover, comic question mark, cover question mark dot path. And then we also need to do some optional chaining here and say let comic dot question mark dot cover question mark dot ext else. Then we need to return, but before we return we need to set the comic image dot image equal to UI image. This initializer has a UI image dot name, and we need to pass in the constant, the default placeholder constant, which will then reference our forgot the equals there. So let ext equals the default placeholder will actually reference the assets from the assets folder. So that's why, and we've just added the constant there. So if you needed to change it anywhere else, or use it anywhere else, sorry, and then in the future you decided to change the name, it takes effect across the whole app. So with that done, we can now, if this optional chaining guardlet is successful, we need to set the comic image dot SDWebImage, which we have been using in the as a package from Swift Package Manager. That's also in how to install, is in the series as well. So yeah, check out all the other videos. And then we need to do set image. But before we do fill out this, we need to get our URL, which will be a combination of the path and extension. So we'll do path plus and a dot, so that's the separator between the end of the URL and the extension, plus ext, and then here we will do URL string, and then pass in our URL and force unwrap that, because we don't really, the URL shouldn't be wrong. Our placeholder image, we could use our Iron Man face, but we're going to use a little activity indicator on each cell. So in this instance we're going to put nil, but you can use the default, you can do the UI image named default placeholder that we've, similar to what we've done here on line 63. So our options are going to be continue in the background, so that the data's being pulled in as we're scrolling. Progress, we can set that to nil, and our completed block, we're going to say image error cache and URL. We're not going to use this straight off the bat, but this is going to handle the dismissal of our activity indicator when we get round to writing that section. So what we can do now is build and run, and we should be able to see that our comic book covers appear in the instead of the purple blocks. So if we drill down into this guy here, there you go. They took a little while to load, but yeah, that's why we're going to replace them with a spinner. So just as a cleanup now, if we hit back in our collection view cell, our custom collection view cell, we're going to get rid of this purple background. So delete that. And where it says aspect fill, we're going to change that to aspect fit. And build and run. And we should see that the comic books are no longer sitting on top of the purple background because we've got rid of that, and they seem, the aspect ratio looks a lot better. There you go. And these will all have activity indicators as so it looks like we're actually loading something. So with that in mind, we can start looking at building our activity indicator. So one of the things I am going to do now is in our core, create a in our core section, create a new group called views, and then we are going to, in views, we're going to create just a standard Swift class, and we're going to call this activity indicator. So activity indicator, and this will handle all of our the way the spinner works and all that sort of stuff. So it will, that you will see the you'll see some clear images, but it will look something like, if we head on over to our finished product, which is here, our intentions are to get it to look something similar to this one. So if we find the guy that had all the comics, we'll look at this one. So it looks something like that. So the indicator will spin, and yeah, so it'll look like something's actually happening rather than just seeing a white space for a short period of time. So in our activity indicator, we're going to import UI kit. It's going to be class activity indicator, like so, and then we need to build out our activity indicator. So at var activity indicator is of type UI activity indicator view equals. This is all kind of stuff that I've done before. We're just going to create some helper functions that we will pass in a view, and it will render on the on the view that we pass in. Pretty straightforward stuff, but let's continue with our activity. Our activity indicator is of type UI activity indicator view, and then we should have a style, and we need to do dot. Should have large. That looks good. Yep, that's all good. And then activity translates auto resizing mask into constraints. Set that to false, and then we want to give it a color. So activity dot color equals dot black. So it matches. It can be any color that you want, but we're going to use black. And then finally return our activity indicator. Then here we're going to have a helper function that's called display activity. It's going to take in a view, and this is of type UI view. yeah, so we can pass in any view. So in this instance, we could pass in the entire cell of the table view at the last cell of the table view, and we can pass in each of the content views, because content view of a collection view cell is a subclass of UI view. So yeah, we can pass in any view that we want. So view.add subview, and then we want to do activity indicator, and then just some basic constraints. So rather than pinning it to the left, to the right, and up top and down the bottom, we're just going to do center X, center Y. That's it. So then if we do activity indicator dot center Y dot constraint equal to view dot center Y dot is active equals true, and then this one here, we're just going to cheat a little bit and copy paste this line and change the Y to an X on both of those, and that should be all we need to lay out that activity indicator. And then finally, to start the spinning animation, we need to do start animating, and then we do activity indicator dot start animating, and then finally to stop. So when all the data is loaded, we just want to do stop the animation and then remove it from the view that it's contained in. So if we do stop, func stop animating like so, and then do activity indicator dot stop animating, and then activity indicator dot remove from super view. So that will just clean it away from any of the views that it nests in. So now we have those. Now we have these the activity indicator class set up. We can use it in our table view cell. So to begin with, we are going to set up when to present the activity indicator. So here we want to comic book, yeah, this is correct cell. So here we want to do var activity equals activity indicator. So we're going to initialize that there, and then we want it to appear when the collection view is loaded. So at the bottom here, we want to do activity dot in between our closure and our data source, where we set our data source and where we have our closure that reloads the collection view. We want to say activity indicator dot display activity, and then pass in the content view, which is the cell, and then func start animating, stop animating. Then here, directly underneath, we need to do activity dot start animating. So that will start it spinning, and then once we have the data, after we reload or before, it doesn't really matter, we can do weak self dot activity dot stop animating, and that will just stop the animation and remove it from the table view cell. So if we now build and run that, when we load hopefully it's not too quick, but when we load some comic before the comic books actually appear, we should see a activity indicator appear ever so slightly. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. There you go. You just briefly saw that activity indicator appearing. So now we need to focus on doing it on a per collection view cell basis. So if we head on over to our character collection view cell, in here in our set data, we want to do the same again. So we want to initialize, so var activity equals activity indicator, like so, and then down here, the first line of our set data, we want to say activity dot display activity, and then the content view of the cell. So that will sit in the middle of the content view. You could actually have it sit in the middle of where the comic book sits. So you would pass in the image view in this instance. So yeah, line 61, we're actually saying we want it to sit in the middle of the content view, and then we need to do activity dot start animating, and then this is the reason why we added our completion block, used a set image SD_set image with a completion block, is so that we can do activity dot stop animating. And if we that needs a self associated with it, self, like so. And yes, now when we load comics into the app, you'll see the whole table views, the bottom table view cell has a activity indicator in the center, and then there's one per comic as we are scrolling and loading the data in. So if we pick these guys here, yeah, and as you can see, as we're scrolling, you've got an activity indicator as we are loading the data in. Like I say, you could sit that in the middle of the, so if we do comic image, like so, you could have that sit in the middle of the comic rather than sitting in the middle of the content view, so it will look slightly different, might look a little bit neater, but again, it's pure preference down to the individual. Yeah, they've already loaded, so they've been cached. Let's pick another. Yeah, so it looks a little bit neater, just having it sit in the middle of the comic, where the comic book cover would sit. One last thing is that someone raised that on the on this section here, we are not the safe area of the bottom of the collection view is kind of over on the phones with the notches, the X, the XS, 11 Pro, and all the ones that have got the notches, and no home button. We kind of overhanging the swipe to home feature, which is a good point, because if you're swiping right up from the very bottom to here, yeah, it could get in the way. So we can fix that. So if we head on over back to our home presentation, we should have a collection view. Here it is. Yep. So our bottom anchor, we just need to do .safe area layout guide, and then our controller view .safe area layout guide. And if we build and run, what we should see is a black bar at the bottom, and that's because our view controller's background color has not been set. So we can, as you can see, we have a black bit at the bottom. And just quickly to fix that, if we head on over to our view controller, we can just do in our setup, we can do view.background color equals .white, like so. And that is it. That is all of the app built. So basically, if we just have a quick overview of what we have achieved through this, I think it's 7 parts. There you go. We now don't cover up the swipe to home or swipe to app switcher. So you can scroll, and when the safe area is taken into consideration. So yes, going back to, we have built an app from literally nothing to what we have in front of us, and this is actually a technical test for one company in the UK. So this, if you apply for a job with, or try and get a job with them, they do like an initial interview, and then part of their tech test is for you to build out this very app. But yeah, so that's the sort of things that you could potentially come across in, especially in the UK. It's quite common to have to build out an app or something like that. But yeah, this is it. That was the spec. They gave you a day to do it, and you could you had to build out, make the request, and then you had to write the unit test as well. But other than that, that's it. But yeah, we've covered a lot. So if we have a quick breakdown of what we've achieved, so we've built a UI with no storyboards, which is always good. So there's no storyboards. We're using constraints. We're using collection views. We're using table views. Both vertical scrolling and horizontal scrolling. We're using third-party library, SDWebImage, to cache our images. So covered a bit on Swift Package Manager and how to install. We've used custom fonts, which is, a lot of people have trouble with custom fonts, and we have covered animating, like button presses and stuff like that, drop shadows, customization, custom nav bars. Yeah, we've covered a lot. Hopefully you have all found it to be of value, and I know people have been asking me questions, and I've really enjoyed helping everyone. But yeah, I've got some great plans for the next session of videos, and I'll probably do, once this goes out and people have watched it and stuff like that, I may do just a follow-up, no code, just me talking, and answer any of your questions. But like I say, there's been a good amount of stuff covered in these 7 or soon to be 8 videos. And like I say, I've said in all the other videos, if I've not made anything explicitly clear, please get in touch. Please leave a comment. Please, find me, or comment on my GitHub page or whatever. Yeah, please feel free to reach out and get in touch, because I want to help as much as I can. And hopefully you've enjoyed the video series. Like I say, if there's any questions, please don't hesitate but to get in touch with me. And yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe to the video, share it with your friends if you found this of any use. And I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.